Good afternoon. I am Vicky McCullum with the Friday edition of the Our City COVID-19 News Show. We will be updating you on the latest information and resources around the COVID-19 pandemic while unpacking deeper issues as they emerge. We encourage our viewers to get in touch with us. We want to hear from you as we welcome contributions from movements, healthcare providers, and our audience. We want this program to be a two-way flow of information, so please get in touch with us via our social media platforms and our emails. Moving to news. As we enter day 29 of the national lockdown, the current number of confirmed COVID-19 cases stands at 3,953, with 1,473 recoveries and 75 deaths. Students at Western Cape universities have started orientation designed to help them adjust to a new online learning system. UWC spokesperson Khasanta Bada said the university would assess the situation to see if improvements needed to be made and appeal to the public to assist 30% of its 24,000 student body who did not have access to devices such as laptops and data. Meanwhile, student representative councils and student organizations said universities must ensure all students have equal access to online learning and have threatened a national boycott if this condition is not met. South Africa's 21-day lockdown has presented an unusual challenge for a nation with the world's highest burden of HIV infections. In order to remain healthy, those on antiretrovirals need to venture out of their homes for their life-saving medication, a move that puts them at greater risk of contracting the highly infectious coronavirus.
South African hospitals are busy preparing for a coming storm of coronavirus cases, which officials expect to peak in September. As they stare down this pandemic, though, they're also dealing with another, even bigger one. South Africa has the world's heaviest burden of HIV patients, with at least 7.7 million cases. Its government also runs one of the world's largest free antiretroviral programs. How, in this age of lockdowns and strict social distancing, can these vulnerable patients stay safe from a new viral threat? Enter the pharmacy ATM. South African nonprofit organization Right to Care unrolled the innovative program in 2018 to give patients with chronic illnesses their repeat medication in under 3 minutes. In normal times, the program saves patients the inconvenience of waiting in long lines at government clinics. During this new pandemic, it could save lives.
The interaction between a patient and healthcare professional is minimized, is very minimal. It's more or less virtual from the patient point of view because it's via an audio-visual link. So interaction, so the spread of the virus is limited because there is no person-to-person interaction because we're using audio-visual link. We're using an ATM pharmacy to dispense medication to patients.
The program's managing director, Fanny Hendricks, says it could also lift a burden off the nation's hospitals. Patients can get 2 months of medication at a time.
In a time like this, it's important that we decant our chronic stable patients from our overburdened facilities to make way for the side effects of the pandemic.
The program has 5 locations in South Africa, most of them in high-density areas in Johannesburg and the city of Bloemfontein. Most are inside shopping malls, which, under South Africa's strict lockdown conditions that only allow essential trips outside of the home, also minimizes the number of trips patients have to make.
We've seen a rapid increase in patient numbers at our ATM pharmacies. One of the main reasons for this is just remember that these ATM pharmacies are situated in community shopping centers. So in a period of lockdown, patients can easily align the collection of their chronic medication with their monthly or weekly shopping. And also the ATM pharmacies is open 7 days a week, and already we are open 80 hours more per month than the public healthcare facilities.
The program is busy collecting data on how many new patients have entered the program. But they say every single patient they can help contributes to the larger fight against the coming pandemic. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
A man has been arrested in Mfuleni Township for cable theft. The Zimbabwean national was found in possession of 2,500 kilograms of non-ferrous metal and overhead Prasa copper cables. Police spokesperson Andre Trout said members of the Rapid Rail Police Unit in Philippi acted on information that led them to a container in Koro Street where the stolen goods were recovered. The suspect will appear in court in Blue Downs once charged. 1,500 families living in overcrowded Dunoon will be relocated to Winning Way in Milnerton, where transitional residential units are being built for beneficiaries, Ground Up News reported. Marcelino Martin, spokesperson for Western Cape Provincial Human Settlements MEC, Tertius Simmers, said the project was already in the pipeline, but the COVID-19 pandemic and the call from Minister Lindiwe Sisulu to reblock the area had necessitated the acceleration of the upgrading process to combat the spread of the virus. The families are not expected to return to Dunoon once the pandemic is over. At least 19 million glasses of South African wine are consumed across the world every single day, and the industry employs around 300,000 people. With the South African government restricting the selling of liquor during the lockdown period, the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape wants the government to lift restrictions on the provincial wine trade. Citizens are forbidden from buying liquor, but with that fate of the lucrative industry in the balance, the party said it believed with proper regulations in place, lives and jobs could be saved. Now it's time for an ad break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. You're still watching the Our City COVID-19 show with me, Vicky McCullum. We will be giving you the latest updates on the COVID-19 pandemic and sharing essential resources and information with you. On the 1st of May, South Africa will enter stage 4 of the nationwide lockdown, which will see the relaxation of some regulations. President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation last night. He said although the coronavirus remained a threat, the lockdown could not remain in place indefinitely. Therefore, economic activity would be opened in some sectors. This is what he had to say.
While a nationwide lockdown is probably the most effective means to contain the spread of the virus, it cannot be sustained indefinitely. Our people need to eat, they need to earn a living, companies need to be able to produce and to trade, they need to generate revenue and keep their employees in employment. We have accordingly decided that beyond Thursday, the 30th of April, we should begin a gradual and phased recovery of economic activity. We will implement what we call a risk-adjusted strategy through which we take a deliberate and cautious approach to the easing of current lockdown restrictions. We have decided on this approach because there is still much that is unknown about the rate and the manner of the spread of the virus within our own population. The action we take now must therefore be measured and incremental. This approach is guided by the advice from scientists who have advised that an abrupt and uncontrolled lifting of restrictions could cause a massive resurgence in infections. We cannot take action today that we will deeply regret tomorrow. We must avoid a rushed reopening that could risk a spread which would need to be followed by another hard lockdown, as has happened in other countries. We have to balance the need to resume economic activity with the imperative to contain the virus and save lives. To achieve this, we have developed an approach that determines the measures we should have in place based on the direction of the pandemic in our country. As part of this approach, there will be 5 coronavirus levels. The first level is what we call level 5, which means that drastic measures are required to contain the spread of the virus to save lives. Level 4 means that some activity can be allowed to resume subject to extreme precautions required to limit community transmission and outbreaks. Level 3 involves the easing of some restrictions, including on work and social activities, to address high risk of transmission. Level 2 involves the further easing of restrictions, but the maintenance of physical distancing and restrictions on some leisure and social activities to prevent a resurgence of the virus. Level 1 means that most normal activity can resume with precautions and health guidelines followed at all times. To ensure that our response to the pandemic can be as precise and targeted as possible, there will be a national level and separate levels for each province, district, and metro in the country. We are currently at level 5, which requires a full national lockdown to contain the spread of the virus.
Still with the President, how exactly is Stage 4 going to be different from Stage 5? What changes should we expect to see?
The national coronavirus alert level will be lowered from level 5 to level 4, with effect from Friday, the 1st of May. This means that some activity will be allowed to resume subject to extreme precautions to limit community transmission and outbreaks. Some businesses will be allowed to resume operations under specific conditions. Every business will have to adhere to detailed health and safety protocols to protect their employees, and workplace plans will have to be put in place to enable disease surveillance and prevent the spread of infection. All businesses that are permitted to resume operations will be required to do so in a phased manner. First, preparing the workplace for a return to operations, followed by the return of the workforce in batches of no more than 1/3 of their workforce. In some cases, a sector will not be able to return to full production during level 4, while the risk of infection remains high. These will be spelled out next week following a final round of consultations. Businesses will be encouraged to adopt a work-from-home strategy where possible. All staff who can work remotely must be allowed to do so. The relevant ministers will provide details on the process for the phased reopening of schools and other educational institutions. As we gradually ease the restrictions, it is necessary that many of the measures to contain the spread of the virus remain in place. When the country moves to level 4 on the 1st of May, the following will happen. Our borders will remain closed to international travel, except for the repatriation of South African nationals and foreign citizens. No travel will be allowed between provinces except for the transportation of goods and exceptional circumstances such as funerals. Public transport will continue to operate with limitations on the number of passengers and stringent hygiene requirements, including that all passengers must wear a face mask. The public is encouraged to stay at home other than for essential personal movement, doing essential work, and work in sectors that are under controlled opening. People can exercise under strict public health conditions. That will be spelled out. All gatherings, apart from funerals and for work, will remain prohibited. Those who are elderly and those with underlying conditions must remain at home and take additional precautions to isolate themselves. The sale of cigarettes will be permitted. The range of goods that may be sold will be extended to incorporate certain additional categories. These will be detailed by the relevant ministers. It is important to note that several restrictions will remain in place regardless of the level of alert for as long as the risk of transmission is present. For instance, bars and shebeens will remain closed. Conference and convention centers, entertainment venues, cinemas, theaters, and concerts will remain closed. Concerts and sporting events and religious, cultural, and social gatherings will not be allowed until it is deemed safe for them to continue.
With the coronavirus declared a national disaster and the need for individuals to wash their hands regularly and maintain social distancing to avoid contracting the virus, for hostel residents in Langa, this is difficult to maintain. One tap and a toilet are shared among 30 people, while a family of 5 has to share a single room.
With the coronavirus being declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, social distancing is an impossible thing for the residents of Kwalanga here in Zone 2 who live in this hostel, with a family of 5 having to share one bedroom with only one toilet shared amongst 30 people.
So challenges esinazo asinayo social distance, siyahlala nje bawubona as bana ubona siyahlala nje sibukele i-TV song and then siyohlala soba i-3 ebhedini eyi-1. So asinayo thina social distance apha endlini. Into esenza siyoyika kakhulu coronavirus is because sihlala like gohlobo silakho it's like informal settlement, because apha phandle kugcwele amatyotyombe, abantu basematyotyombe of which ezivuka izilapha more than 200 sisebenzisa itoilet eyi-1 ne-tap eyi-1 which is isinki naphakathi eholweni. So sonke sidepende kulaa toilet nalaa sink eyi-1. So ke ngoku asinayo thina uba kuthiwa masihlale ezindlini because kaloku itoilet yethu, itap yethu iyi-1, sisebenzisa into eziyi-1 nabantu banintsi.
Nosamkele Mqikela says that following the social distancing regulation is impossible for her and her family, as they live as a family of 6 in their 1-bedroom home. She says that she has to get water from a nearby tap that is used by more than 30 people.
Nosamkele Mqikela, ndihlala apha kula matyotyombe yakwalanga ishukushukuma eZone 2. Kule nto iqhubekayo yele COVID-19, sithina sihlala ematyotyombeni sifumana uxinzelelo kakhulu because okokuqala sikwazi uhlala ezindlini. Kuyanyanzeleka siphume phandle siye itoilet ziphandle, sicela itoilet endaweni eneholo. So asikwazi nje tu, ispace sincinci apha endlini sihlala siba yi-6. So akho space soba omnye angabhekela komnye space sinidwayo uba sibe khona, sikwazi nje thina ukwazi uba sibe khona. Amanzi siwakha phandle, so asikwazi nje uba sithi sikhuselekile 100% ngenxa yoba asinandawo. So lapho ke ngoku sibetheka khona thina, but siyazama ke uba sizame into yoba sizivase izandla emveni kwala 20 minutes ngesepha but ke ngoku xa nibanintsi nifika nisikhethe phi ne-1 kunzima kakhulu. Apha endlini sibayi-6 abantwana bam bayi-4 ndim notata ekhaya. Abantwana bayabuza ngakumbi lo ukhona lo wam ka-2010 but uyazama ubuza uba kwenzeka ntoni, so ndiyamxelela uba kukho isifo esiye savela. Then ugovernment wasixelela ukuthi masihlalele endlini until ndiyasixelela uba sawuphuma nini na nesikolo ngokunjalo. Une-question azibuzayo ke ngoku sizopasana kulo nyaka okanye sizothini, sizofunda njani. Ndithi ke mna ke kaloku kuthiwe abanye abantwana kofundwa ngeintanethi, uthi njani ke thina ke because thina asinayo. Ndithi ke mna ke lonke loo nto lemibuzo leyo ugovernment uzayicacisa umane simamela until ndiyasicacisela.
This resident has been living in the hostel for about 3 years, where there is no privacy, as he and his wife has to share a room with their kids, and they are unable to adhere to the social distancing regulation, as they are all cluttered in their one-bedroom home.
Mna sizoma ndifuna ukuqhatha, ndifuna like uba mhlawumbi ngathiwa siyakhushwa mhlawumbi aba ndenza umzekelo kuthiwa mhlawumbi sizofunelwa enye indawo, uyaqonda, kuthiwa mhlawumbi kuloo ndawo leyo kuzoba khona i-privacy, like kube khona ikamera yabantwana, kube khona ikamera yabantu abadala, like kube khona i-open space, like senje ngabhetele kum ngolo hlobo kwenza kanjalo.
The worst fears that the residents have is to share one toilet and one tap, with no hand sanitizers and masks to use. They say that they hope that the government will change their situation one day. For our City News, I'm Zanele Mvana, Langa.
The increasing number of COVID-19 cases inside correctional facilities has become a major concern. The spread of the virus has been between wardens and prisoners, with the Eastern Cape the hardest hit, followed by the Western Cape. We spoke to the Department of Correctional Services spokesperson Singabako Khumalo for more. Meanwhile, the South African Prison Organization for Human Rights has called for certain prisoners to be released to curb the spread of COVID-19.
Good morning and welcome to the Our City COVID-19 show. This morning I am joined by Department of Correctional spokesperson Mr. Khumalo, who will be discussing the current state of COVID-19 cases within the prisons across the board. Welcome, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
As we start this conversation, can you please give us a breakdown of the current confirmed total of COVID-19 cases across the board, specifically the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape rather?
Okay, we, as a country, when looking inside correctional services, we are now standing at 115 positive cases, having registered 2 recoveries. The biggest numbers at this stage are located in the Eastern Cape, where we have a total of now 32 officials and 56 inmates. It's quite concerning, it's a big number, but what gives us comfort is that that number has stagnated. It's no longer increasing. Eastern Cape is then followed by the Western Cape, where we have a total of 23 cases. 1 being an inmate, then the rest being officials. We are quite monitoring the situation because there's only 2 centers in the Western Cape which accounts to these numbers. It is Warren-Bothaville and Worcester. Warren-Bothaville having more numbers, so we are monitoring it, but at least when we did the tracing, we could locate where the virus really managed to manifest itself, because a number of our officials infected, they got it at home through different means. So because some of the family members had contracted the virus.
When it comes to quarantining or self-quarantining inmates that have contracted the virus, are your facilities capable enough to ensure that they are isolated from other prisoners?
The exercise that we embarked upon had to look at the entire spectrum of the value chain when dealing with COVID-19, because we had to say how many correctional facilities do we have. We said 243. Then we said ideally it will help us if each and every center is able to identify a quarantine site and an isolation site. But we also understood at the time that some of the centers are largely overcrowded, it could be really difficult for them to make space so that you at least have two sites there which are unoccupied.
As we see the number of wardens also increase with them also being infected with COVID-19, how do you guys go about screening those wardens coming to and from work? What is the process or what is the procedure that is followed?
We screen all officials, service providers, all other people who have to come to our centers, even though visits are suspended. But we just have to really make sure that we minimize any possible transmission of the virus. So hence, we plead with people to be patient with us when coming to our centers for various reasons, which we can only be essential basis.
When it comes to adhering to social distancing in terms of lockdown regulations, as we see prisons overcrowded, how do you guys adhere to social distancing?
One person needs to understand that correctional centers are already isolated sites. For those people to get a virus, it means someone will have to transport it inside the center. Hence, it's important that our prevention measures are quite effective on the ground so we can prevent that possible transmission. But also said, it's also challenging our way of life inside our facilities, because now it means how inmates sleep, the spaces between beds, how do they go about taking a shower, how do they exercise, how do they take meals. It's changing altogether, because now you can no longer open all the cells in the units for them to go to the courtyard for their 1 hour exercise. It means now you have to open a cell by cell. It takes time. It makes others to be agitated, but we do understand it's something which is new to all of us. So it's part of those adjustments that we are making. At times, it's really challenging to have that at least 2 meter space between people, but we are really trying our level best. Hence, we've even suspended contact activities such as soccer, so that we try by all means to limit any contact where possible.
And when you look at people contravening lockdown regulations and they are apprehended, are they sent to prisons or are they kept in holding cells? And if they are sent to prisons, how do you guys go about ensuring that they also do not bring the virus in?
That's the category which is giving us a serious headache, because some people are released on a warning by courts. Some, unfortunately, because of the seriousness of their offenses, then they have to be remanded in our facilities. So we do at times get big numbers, but we developed a system, and thus far it's really working for us, where we keep all newly admitted people in the admission cells for at least 14 days. This is to ensure that we are monitoring them and see whether they do pose any symptoms related to COVID-19. And if they do, we're able then to quarantine them with immediate effect. After that 14 days, our medical team, they do assess them, and if they find them to be well in terms of their health status, they are then integrated into the general inmate population. But the numbers there do pose serious concern, and something that we're really monitoring. But unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do. If people break the law, they have to be detained if there are serious grounds for that.
We've seen, or rather we've heard, that the South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights are calling for prisoners to be released to curb the spread of COVID-19. What is your stance as the Department of Correctional Services on this?
It's amazing how quickly we forget South Africa. Not so long ago, the entire country was up in arms against the president and against correctional services to say, we are releasing people before time, and when they're out, they cause so much pain. And people even saying we need to do away with the parole system. Suddenly now you get these calls, and these people are given so much airtime to literally mobilize for mayhem inside centers, because they are calling for chaos, they are calling for all sorts of things, which we've described it as reckless and irresponsible, because if you incite inmates to cause chaos, what is it that you want to achieve? Correctional centers are closed spaces, and if you then instigate that there be chaos in that space, it will be really, really difficult to control. And then it's something that we've said it is so unjust, and there's no need to call for such, because we are saying we're also monitoring the situation. We, not so long ago, placed out a number of people when the president announced the special remission of sentences. So all people with minor offenses or who were almost close to their date of release were placed out. But we do continue to monitor the spread of the virus. For now, it is well contained.
Thank you so much, Singabako, for giving us clarity on the current state of prisons across the board. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us.
When we come back from the ad break, Octavia and Lovu will take a look at what's happening on social media.
Welcome back. Before the ad break, we had Vicky McCullen with the latest news. One of Africa's largest repetition management consultancy, Mega Carter, has created the animation PSA to educate people on the symptoms of COVID-19 and remind them that to practice social distancing to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus infections.
Kusezandleni zakho ukuba uzikhusela njani kwimpilo nokhuseleko lwe-coronavirus wena, intsapho yakho kunye nabo osebenza nabo. Yintoni i-coronavirus, COVID-19? COVID-19 luhlobo lomkhuhlane abantu abazange babe nalo ngaphambili. Abantu abakwazi ukuwumela lo mkhuhlane futhi akukafunyanwa iyeza eluchanayo. COVID-19 iyasuleleka kodwa ayoyikisi njenge-SARS virus. Eyona ndlela yoyilumkela i-COVID-19 kukungadibani nabantu ngobuninzi babo. Sanukoyika, ukuzikhusela nguyena ndongqo wokuhlula le virus. Iindaba ezimnandi, abantu abaninzi amajoni abo omzimba akwimeko entle. Bakufumana nje umkhuhlana ongayindawo, bazikhusela ngokulandela le migaqo. Hlamba izandla zakho imizuzu 20 ngesephu. Ukuba ayikho isephu, sebenzisa isibulala ntsholongwane esine 60% yotywala. Yeka ukubamba amehlo, impumlo kunye nomlomo kuba ngawona masango apho ingena khona intsholongwane. Coca indawo yakho yokusebenza, idesika, ikhitshi, itafile yenhlangano, indawo yokutyela, usebenzise isepha, isibulala ntsholongwane. Hlamba izandla zakho emva kokuba ubambe nantoni na, njengecango, umnyango weteksi, ikhompyuta, nelayiti yombane nemali. Ukuzikhathalela ukumeko entle yokulwa nentsholongwane. Ukuba ngaba amajoni wakho omzimba akusimo esihle sempilo, lala ngokwaneleyo, yitya kakuhle, zilolonge, lwisa ingcinezelo yengqondo. Yeka ukuhamba okungabalulekanga eMzantsi Afrika nangaphesheya ukunqanda ukwanda kwentsholongwane. Kuxhomekeke kwihambo yakho, hlala endlini amalanga 14 emva kokushiya indawo apho yandileyo intsholongwane. Eyona nto ibalulekileyo, nangona kunzima ukuba kude nabo abantu abafutshane kuwe, zama ukungadibani nezintlobo zakho, ukunxibelelana nikude kuko okulungeleyo kuwo wonke umntu ukuze sikhuseleke. Ukuba uyaphuma kwakho, zama ukuba ungadibani nabantu abaninzi. Wazi njani ukuba wosulelekile yile ntsholongwane? Amaphawu afana nowomkhuhlane, ukuphelelwa ngumphefumlo, izilonda enqaleni, ukhohlokhohlo olomileyo. Ukuba ngaba ubona ezi mpawu, suxhalaba. Ukuba nolwazi yiyona ndlela yokukhuseleka. Landela i-World Health Organization ukuba uhlale unolwazi nokuba unombuzo. Ungaqala ngokufunda ngokubanzi nge-COVID-19 ngokuthumela igama HI ku-0600 123 456 kuWhatsApp. Le video iqulunqwe yi-Magna Carta Reputation Management Consultants kunye nabo basebenzisana nabo kwizwekazi iAfrika. Hlala ukhuselekile, unxulumene nabanye, usebenza, ujonge ikamva xa sizama ukudadela enxwemeni sonke.
And now for social media. Share your thoughts with us on Facebook, we are Our City CT, and on Twitter at Our City CT. This is a time that we need to come together as a nation. These are the popular hashtags on Twitter today. Hashtag Ramadan Karim. With billions in lockdown, Muslims across the world are sending greetings and images via Twitter. The new moon was spotted last night, heralding the start of the fast and the holy month. Smokers. Level 4 lockdown will allow smokers to buy cigarettes once more. Meanwhile, in the US, the much-anticipated review of the e-cigarettes has been put on hold due to coronavirus. Hashtag Cyril Mask Challenge. The president's misstep when putting on his mask after his TV address last night has inspired a series of memes and challenges. Most are in good spirits, taking the mickey out of the president's wardrobe malfunction. A few nasty, but we'll ignore those. After the break, we'll cross over to Vicky McCullen, who will give us more research on places of safety and access you can go to after this lockdown. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still tuned to Our City, the COVID show, with me, Vicky McCullum. Before the ad break, Octavia and Lovo looked at what has the nation buzzing on social media platforms. For your latest news around the COVID-19 pandemic and to see what other Cape Townians are doing to keep safe, tune in to Cape Town TV Daily. Speaking about what other Cape Townians are doing, here are some organizations helping communities stay safe. Tears Animal Rescue is stepping up during lockdown by doing donation drives and distributing pet food to owners living in vulnerable communities who are struggling to feed their pets and are in dire need of assistance. The organization has launched an urgent COVID-19 pet food appeal to Cape Town-based manufacturers to donate their surplus edible pet food, which will then be distributed where it is needed most. You can get involved by contacting them on 021-785-4482 or email tears@tears.org.za. A Cape Town-based school feeding organization is putting food on the table for thousands of poor households during the lockdown. The Peninsula School Feeding Association is donating 9,000 food parcels to families in the Greater Cape Town area. You can get involved by contacting them on 021-447-6020 or email info@psfa.org.za. For those battling with substance abuse, call the numbers on the screen now. Please access assistance from the following community support groups, most of whom are offering online meetings. That's all we have for you today, but if you have something to say, we want to hear from you. You can send your comments, news and questions to us via Facebook @OurCityCT, on Twitter @OurCityCT, or get in touch with us on email ourcity@capetowntv.org. This is the time that we need to come together as a nation, so if you're not sure about something, send us your questions and we'll try to find the answers for you. You can also call us on 021-448-0448. From me, Vicky McCullum, and Octavia and Lovu, have a great day. Goodbye.